Hey everyone! Today we're going to talk about comparative advantage and absolute advantage, two really important concepts in microeconomics and international economics. Let's get started. Before we get into comparative and absolute advantage, let's go back to an example that we've covered in this video. So let's imagine a very rudimentary economy. To picture it better, think of the book Robinson Crusoe or the movie Cast Away with Tom Hanks. In this economy, only two goods are produced: coconuts and fish. And this graph shows Chuck's production possibilities frontier. The production possibilities frontier shows the maximum amount of coconuts, the good on the vertical axis, that can be produced, given the quantity of fish, the good on the horizontal axis. Along the PPF, production is both feasible and efficient. Inside the PPF, production is feasible but not efficient. And outside the PPF, production isn't feasible at all. The PPF is also known as the production possibility curve, or the transformation curve. Now, we need to talk about another concept: opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is what you are giving up to get something. The shape of the PPF is usually bowed outward, which means that opportunity cost here is increasing along the curve. Now, to simplify our analysis of comparative and absolute advantage, we're going to relax that assumption of increasing opportunity cost, and we'll assume opportunity cost is constant, so the PPF will be represented by a straight line. You might be wondering, is constant opportunity cost actually necessary assumption for the definitions of comparative and absolute advantage? The answer is no. We're only using it to really simplify our analysis. Now let's switch to next slide. I'll bring in a numerical example based on Chuck's production possibilities frontier. If Chuck specializes in coconuts, he can produce a maximum of 20 coconuts. If he specializes in fish, he can produce a maximum of 24 fish. Now let's calculate the opportunity cost of obtaining coconuts and the opportunity cost of obtaining fish. Let's start with the opportunity cost of producing fish. How many coconuts does Chuck have to give up to produce one more unit of fish? In order to calculate this, we will need the maximum quantities that Chuck can produce: 20 coconut if he specializes in the coconut production, and 24 fishes if he specializes in the fish production. So to produce 24 fish, Chuck has to give up 20 coconuts. So the opportunity cost is 20 over 24, which is approximately 0.83. So, what does this opportunity cost actually mean? To get one additional unit of fish, Chuck has to give up 0.83 units of coconuts. Now let's calculate the opportunity cost of obtaining a coconut. To obtain 20 coconuts, Chuck has to give up 24 fish. 24 over 20, which equals 1.2. It's exactly the inverse. So this opportunity cost means to obtain one additional unit of coconuts, he has to give up 1.2 units of fish. Now, let's suppose there's a second shipwreck near the island, and a second castaway arrives. His name is Robinson. Here are Robinson's production possibilities. If he only produces coconuts, he produces 15 coconuts. If he only produces fish, he can produce a maximum of 10 fish. Now let's calculate the opportunity cost of coconuts and fish for Robinson. To get 10 fish, Robinson has to give up 15 coconuts. So the opportunity cost is 15 over 10, which is the same as 1.5. What about the opportunity cost of producing one coconut? To obtain 15 coconuts, Robinson has to give up 10 fish. So it's 10 over 15, or approximately 0.67. Now that we have the opportunity costs calculated, and we have their production possibilities frontiers, we can go ahead and talk about the concept of comparative advantage and absolute advantage. Let's start with absolute advantage. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. It really helps us grow. What is absolute advantage? Absolute advantage is used to compare the productivity of one person, firm, or even a country, with another person, firm, or country. So, absolute advantage is the ability to produce a good using a smaller quantity of inputs compared to another producer. It's worth pointing out that in Chuck and Robinson's case, labor is the only input, and it's the same for both of them. The only difference here is productivity. So let's compare Chuck and Robinson's productivity. If they dedicate themselves entirely to one type of production, let's say coconuts, Chuck can produce 20 coconuts, while Robinson can only produce 15. That means Chuck has absolute advantage in coconut production. Now, if they specialize in fish instead, Chuck can produce 24 fish, while Robinson can only produce 10. So Chuck also has absolute advantage in fish production. In other words, Chuck has absolute advantage in both coconut production and fish production. Now we still need to talk about comparative advantage. So what is comparative advantage? Comparative advantage is used to compare the productivity of one person, firm, or even country in the production of two or more goods. A producer has comparative advantage in the production of a good when the opportunity cost of producing it is lower compared to another producer. So we'll need to compare the opportunity costs. Whichever producer has the lower opportunity cost of producing a good has the comparative advantage in that good. Let's go back to the opportunity cost table we already calculated. Chuck's opportunity cost of producing fish is 0.83, and Robinson's is 1.5. Who has the lower opportunity cost? Chuck. So Chuck has comparative advantage in fish production. Now comparing the opportunity cost of obtaining one coconut, Chuck's is 1.2, and Robinson's is 0.67. Robinson has the lower opportunity cost of producing coconuts, so Robinson has comparative advantage in coconut production. So Chuck has comparative advantage in fish production, and Robinson has comparative advantage in coconut production. So wouldn't it make more sense for Chuck to specialize in fish and Robinson to specialize in coconuts? The answer is yes, because they each have comparative advantage in a different good. So if Chuck and Robinson specialize their production, the total output of the economy increases and they can trade their surpluses, which creates gains for both of them, for Robinson and for Chuck. Now let's do a practical exercise to check if we've really understood how to determine comparative and absolute advantage. England and Scotland produce scones and sweaters. Suppose an English worker can produce 50 scones per hour or 1 sweater per hour. Suppose that a Scottish worker can produce 40 scones or 2 sweaters per hour. Let's start with letter A. Which of the two countries has the absolute advantage in the production of each good, and which country has the comparative advantage? First, let's organize all the information we have. An English worker produces 50 scones, or 1 sweater per hour. A Scottish worker produces 40 scones, or 2 sweaters per hour. Now let's determine the absolute advantage of each country. If they dedicate themselves only to producing scones, England can produce more scones than Scotland, 50 versus 40. So England has absolute advantage in scones production. Now, if they dedicate themselves only to producing sweaters, England produces just 1 sweater, while Scotland produces 2, 1 versus 2. So Scotland has absolute advantage in sweater production. Now let's analyze the comparative advantage. In order to do that, we need the opportunity cost of producing scones and the opportunity cost of producing sweaters in each country. Let's look at England first. England's opportunity cost of producing scones is, to produce 50 scones, you have to give up 1 sweater. So 1 divided by 50, 0.02. In Scotland, to produce 40 scones, you have to give up 2 sweaters. So 2 divided by 40, which gives an opportunity cost of 0.05. So which country has the lower opportunity cost of producing scones? England. Then England has comparative advantage in scones production. Now let's calculate the opportunity cost of producing sweaters. To produce 1 sweater, England has to give up 50 scones, so the opportunity cost is 50 over 1. In Scotland, to produce 2 sweaters in 1 hour, they have to give up 40 scones. So the opportunity cost of producing 1 sweater is 40 over 2, which equals 20. So, comparing England's and Scotland's opportunity cost of producing sweaters, who has the lower opportunity cost? Scotland. So, Scotland has comparative advantage in sweater production. If England and Scotland decide to trade, what good would each of them sell? Let's explain. Since each country has comparative advantage in a different good, yes, there are gains from trade. So Scotland should specialize in producing sweaters, England should specialize in producing scones, and they trade these two goods with each other. Now, letter C. If a Scottish worker could produce only one sweater per hour, would Scotland still gain from trade? Would England still gain from trade? Explain. To verify that, we need to recalculate the opportunity cost of Scotland. The opportunity cost of producing scones changed to 1 divided by 40, 0.025. It is higher than the opportunity cost of England. So England still has comparative advantage in scones production. And the opportunity cost of producing sweater is now 40 over 140. It is lower than opportunity cost of England. So Scotland still has comparative advantage in sweaters production. Since both countries still have comparative advantage in different goods, yes, both countries would still gain from trade. That's all for today. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you know when new videos are posted.